Hey, what's up, folks? On this episode of House of B, we're going to talk about our top five football movies with the Super Bowl coming up.
Foosball. So, welcome back. We're counting down our top five football movie picks. We'll be doing series of a number of different types of videos of top fives, versus cage matches, and just discussions about music, movies, and pop culture. So, this week, again, is our top five movie picks. We're going to start off with Corey, who's going to tell us his number five, top five movie pick.
My number five football movie is The Replacements, starring Gene Hackman and Keanu
And
Reeves.
Keanu Reeves. I've heard of that movie. I
Okay.
can't say that I've seen it, but I've heard of that movie. My top five actually was I wanted to get a comedy in there, so my fifth movie is The Waterboy,
Foosball.
starring Bobby Boucher. Or, no, not starring Bobby Boucher. Starring Adam Sandler is Bobby Boucher and Kathy Bates, with an amazing performance for whom he stole the show. But we can talk more about that later.
All
What's
right.
your number four
My
pick?
number four is Remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans. Very good movie. I'm very familiar with that. That is in my list as well. But
Okay.
we'll get to that.
All right.
My number four pick is The Blind Side,
The Blind
starring
Side,
Sandra
Sandra
Bullock,
Bullock.
Quentin Aaron, or A.A. Ron, and Tim McGraw was in that as
Yeah.
well, and Kathy Bates. So I like football movies
With
with
Kathy
Kathy
Bates.
Bates.
I don't think there's any more beyond those two, though, is there?
For Kathy Bates in football movies, as far as I know, that's it.
Right.
But I haven't actually
Um,
checked her whole resume to find out.
yeah, The Blind Side was a good movie. It didn't make my list, though. My number three is The Express, starring Dennis Quaid. It's the story of Ernie Davis, who's the only Syracuse football player to ever win the Heisman Trophy.
Syracuse football. I'm familiar with that. So, full disclosure here, I don't know a lot about sports. I do know something about movies, and there's movies that I like, and I haven't seen them all. And this just happens to be one that I have not seen
All right.
yet either. That was your number three
Number
pick.
three. What was your number three?
Um, Everybody would know Rudy, Rudy. So Sean Astin.
Yeah.
That actually had John Favreau and Ned Beatty in that in it as well back
Yeah.
in 1993.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a very good movie.
So that was my number three pick.
All right. My number two is The Waterboy, which was on your list as well.
So wow, that was actually much higher up for your
Yes.
list than it was mine. I think for me, some of the more serious movies are the ones that top my list, and the comedy just slid into fifth place for me. So very good.
And your number two?
My number two was Radio, starring Cuba Gooding Jr., Ed Harris, and Alfre Woodard. I love this actress. I thought she was a standout in Suicide Squad, and I loved her in Star Trek First Contact.
What about Luke Cage?
That's amazing,
Yeah,
amazing.
she did a complete. I'm First Contact is what I know her best from, and just her character in there is much different. And I'm not that familiar with Radio. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
It's another one of these kinds of movies that's kind of an uplifting movie, a feel-good movie, and about someone helping uplift or lift up someone else. And I just really like those kinds of stories. The unfortunately the no, Normally the movies that do really well for Oscars and stuff like that, the make you cry movies, not so much as what I want to see. I want to go to the movie to uh, escape, you know,
Right.
and to enjoy, to laugh, and but not to cry,
All
unless
right.
it's tears of joy.
All right. So my number one was one that was already on your list, and that was Rudy.
Oh,
So to me, that's the quintessential football movie. It's the underdog story. It's a true story, about this guy that was a huge Notre Dame fan and was a walk-on and finally got his moment to play in the game. Although the movie does dramatize the actual event, but
well,
that's
as
that's
the
the way
way
they.
is with entertainment. I
Right.
mean, that's unless you're doing a documentary, whether it's a biopic or just some movie based on a true story, you're always going to have those elements where they embellish things a little bit. It's just if they keep to the heart of it, of what was happening in those events, and not just outright outright lies, then I think they've done their job.
Right.
So yeah, Rudy, number one for you. My number one was actually Remember the Titans, Denzel Washington, and that actually had Keith Bosworth and Ryan Gosling in it. So there was just two people that I didn't really know at the time that I know now. And reflecting back on that, I was like, wow, that's right, they were in that. But another great movie about overcoming adversity and just joining together and making something good happen. So that was my number one pick. There's a number of these movies I haven't seen in a long time, so some of my memory is not the best on it. I actually had to refresh by watch some of these movies over again, and then for my four pick, The Blind Side, I hadn't seen that before until this past Sunday. It was a 50-cent rental on Amazon Prime, and I was trying to just familiarize myself with some more movies in this category. And after watching it, it almost didn't make my list because it's a 2-hour movie, and it's not until about 57 minutes into the movie you finally get to see football. So I was like, "Where's the football in this football movie?"
Right. No, but it's a true story. Another
Yeah.
true story about Michael Oher,
Yep.
who
Not Big Mike. He doesn't like to be called Big Mike.
he actually played in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago with the Carolina Panthers.
He was with the Ravens at one point.
I believe so. Yes.
I know that just because I just watched the movie and they showed it like in the credits.
Yeah.
They were showing
No, but he
actual
was
live footage of events.
he was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago for the Panthers against the Broncos and lost, unfortunately, for them. But yeah. So try to come up with a consensus for between our lists. So there's
where we have overlap is Remember the Titans,
Remember the Titans,
Rudy,
yeah, and Waterboy.
Waterboy.
So I had Rudy at 1, you had it at 3. So I think that's probably consensus number 1 because it's closest to the top.
Where's your Remember the Titans?
I had them at 4.
At 4. That puts it at about 2.5, and Rudy is
Was
about
2.
2. But when you your Waterboy was 2,
2,
but
and
it
you
was
was 5, so that's about
me.
3.5. So I think
So you're right.
consensus-wise, Rudy would be 1.
1,
Remember the Titans would be 2.
2.
Waterboy would be 3.
And I'll tell you, I was actually thinking about The Longest Yard, the remake. I was thinking about that, and it was another Adam Sandler football movie, and they had Burt Reynolds in it.
Well, he was in the original.
And he was in the original, 1974. So I really weighed that because I enjoyed that movie. It wasn't a great movie, but I enjoyed it. It was just something I could just, tune out the brain, grab
Right.
some popcorn, stuff my face, and have some laughs. But Waterboy, when I had to, Kathy Bates and her performance. Jerry Reed was in Waterboy, and then you had Burt Reynolds in help me out here, Longest Yard.
Yeah.
And those two were Jerry Reed and Burt Reynolds were together in Smokey and the
Right.
Bandit.
A couple other ones, honorable mentions. I don't know if you had any.
Well, that probably would be one of my honorable
Um,
mentions.
Any Given Sunday.
And I haven't seen that, and
Yeah.
I wanted to see it.
It's Jamie Foxx, Al Pacino. It's kind of like, behind the scenes of a football team, but it's kind of, again, a little bit too much over dramatized. And
I'll give you another one that was one of my honorable mentions. It was in my top 5, and it got bumped because of Blindside. It got blindsided. You see what I did there? So it was actually The Last Boy Scout.
Yep.
Bruce Willis and
Damon Wayans.
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I'll probably have it in here somewhere in my notes. Please stand by. No, but it had just some memorable moments, even though it was such a long time ago that I'd seen it. That opening scene where you got the guy running for the touchdown, and there's the defenses starting to come in on him, and he's packing. He's loaded with a gun. He pulls it out and starts shooting people. Gets to the end zone, touchdown, and then blows out his brains. And it's like that's a heck of a
Right.
show opener. But that was probably more of a detective story than it was a football
Right.
movie.
Yeah, I mean, another one that I considered and was in my top 5 for a little bit, and then I ended up bumping it because revolves kind of around football, but it's essentially not the point of the story. Is Jerry Maguire.
That was one I was looking at too. I was considering that, and it's like this is more of a love story, and it's more about Tom Cruise's character, Jerry Maguire, and the kid who talks about 8-pound heads and all
And his
that.
neighbor with the 3 rabbits.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I was considering that as well. And once again, Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah.
Had, I thought, a great role
Yeah, it's
in
great.
that.
Some other ones. There's Friday Night Lights, Varsity Blues, which are
I actually watched Friday Night Lights. I
which are kind of the teen kind of flicks and
Okay, I'll say this. So that was another 50-cent rental on Amazon, and I watched that first before Blindside. I'm glad I watched it first because I actually was a little disappointed with it. Granted, it's based on a true story, but I'm watching this movie. I want to get excited, and I want to, and they get to the end of the movie, and it's like, yeah, they all lose. Oh, this guy, he becomes an insurance agent, and this guy, he goes off to Harvard, and it's like, I don't know, I was disappointed in that. And then the music actually took me out of the movie a little bit too. Not when they were actually like at the party or at the uh, burger joint and they had music playing and it was of the era because I think it was circa 1988
somewhere around there.
is
Yeah.
when that takes place. And so you're hearing 80s rock bands and rap. So you heard Tricky and you heard Motley Crue and stuff like that. So that I was enjoying. But the actual score was done by a band called Explosions in the Sky. And I think they chose that band because it was they're from Texas, Explosions in the Sky.
Right.
I'm familiar with their music and appreciate it, but it just did not fit in that movie to me. Every time I heard it, I was like, boy, they remind me of somebody I know. Is it Ocean Size, Porcupine Tree, Explosions in the Sky? And afterwards I looked it up and sure enough, Texas
Hmm.
band, Explosions in the Sky. Like the music, not for that movie. It just took me out every time they would go to that.
All right. What other ones did you have in honorable mentions?
I will, oh, I'm going to mention this too. One thing about the movie Blindside, and maybe Corey will put up a graphic for this. One thing about the movie Blindside that I had a hard time getting over was that little kid. So I just looking at him, something bothered me about him, and I'll show you right here. What it was is that the kid reminds me quite a bit, like the kid from Toy
Sid.
Story, Sid, the bad kid from Toy Story. So we'll see a graphic right up here for that. You decide. You can, in the comments below, let us know what you think about that. I got past it. He was charming. He did a good job. Jay Head was the kid's name. But yeah, so the original, uh, Longest Yard 1974, that would be an honorable mention. It's just been so long since I've seen it that I don't remember much about it except for the mustache of Burt Reynolds. But apart from that,
Right.
we got to see the mustache again in the remake of 2005 with Adam Sandler. And the rest of these that are on here were movies I was going to try to watch, but hadn't had the
I see
opportunity.
you have Necessary Roughness, which was a comedy starring Scott Bakula.
Was it good?
At the time, I liked it. I've watched it since, you know,
Doesn't hold up.
a couple of years ago. I think I watched it. And it didn't really hold up that well. But yeah,
Did you ever see Leatherheads?
yes,
And that was with
it's got Clooney
George
and
Clooney.
John Krasnick from The Office.
And was that any good?
It was a cheesy comedy. It
Cheesy
was it
comedy.
was it was very similar comedy style to the other one with Clooney there, Dapper Dan Man. What's the name of the movie?
Oh yeah, Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
Yeah, it's got a similar feel to that, kind of.
I enjoy that movie.
Which it's a good movie, and Leatherheads was okay, but
When we do our top 5 guilty pleasures, that might actually make it in
all
there. So that'll be another time.
right.
Um,
So we had a top three on a consensus. I don't know if how we get to uh top four. I don't know if we the next highest on our list.
well, I think that let me see. Radio was on my
I
list
haven't
as
seen
number
Radio,
2, and
so it's kind of well. I don't know if we can, and you haven't seen The Express, so I don't know if we just
no.
want to throw those out because it's kind of
Well,
hard to do a consensus if someone hasn't seen a movie,
that's true unless I defer,
right?
because now if it was sci-fi, I would not defer. We're talking about sci-fi movies, I would not defer. I would fight tooth and nail. But um, you've seen The Blind Side. Would you allow that to rest within the top 5?
I would be fine with that.
Okay, so we'll put that at 5,
Okay.
and then I'll let you pick number 4. What do you want as the fourth
So
pick?
number four, I had it as my number three would be The Express, the Aaron
Okay,
Davis story.
there we go.
All right.
So we got our top
So
5.
Rudy, Remember the Titans, Waterboy, The Express, and The Blind Side.
and The Blind Side. That's
All
our
right.
top 5 picks. So if you want, you can comment down below and let us know what your top 5 picks are.
Yeah, and if you felt we overlooked something or we're way off base on something, put it in the comments and let you know.
I will say this, there is a movie that I have a feeling could make it into my top 5. I just haven't seen it yet, which is the movie Concussion. And I heard a lot of good things about it, but
It's a
I've not
very good
seen it.
movie, and it's about football injuries, but there's not really a lot of football in it as far as action, playing of the sport, and that's why I didn't even consider it, even though
Yeah,
it's a great movie.
that might
I mean, it was a
change
great
my
movie.
mind as well
Yeah,
too.
it was a good movie.
I almost didn't put Blindside in until, like I said, after about 57 minutes, they finally started getting into football, and I was like, okay, now we got a football movie. So even though I don't really take in a lot of sports, I like good stories, and so some of these movies are some really good stories, and it doesn't have to necessarily be sports or science fiction in space with blasters. As long as you've got a good story, you've got my interest.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, that concludes our top 5 football movies. Um, like we said, we're gonna try to do these videos a couple a week, I think. Talking about
Yeah,
everything from movies, music, pop culture. Do top 5, top tens, battles.
yeah, I think
Review trailers as they come out, that kind of thing.
there will be trailer reviews, movie reviews, and actually there will be another review coming up for a concert that we're going to go
Yes,
watch this Friday.
I was gonna get that. We're gonna be seeing our one of our favorite bands, Queensryche, this weekend. So we'll do a review of that and let you know how that went. And I think maybe for with the Super Bowl coming up, maybe we should do a review of the Super Bowl commercials.
Look for that too.
So,
Super Bowl commercials can be real fun. Some can be real bad. Maybe we'll do the highs and the lows. We'll definitely give you some of our top picks for the Super Bowl commercials, and maybe a couple of them that just made us roll our eyes.
all right. So I think that's going to conclude this one. I'm Corey. It's Tommy.
Tommy.
And we'll see you next time.